So if you have been following along the last 18 days, I have a question for you. Have you found yourself in Proverbs yet? Have you found which side of the aisle you happen to be on? Have you discovered what the Lord wants to show you about yourself, about your path forward, and about maybe your past? I encourage you to look for yourself in these words. Look for what the Lord wants to show you, and take that opportunity to make some changes and to increase your understanding and your learning and really following after the things of God. Today, we're going to go into Proverbs 18, and there were a couple of highlights that I felt like the Lord wanted to bring forward in this day and age, which I think is really impactful. I love the word, no matter what year it is, no matter what time of year it is, no matter what country that you live in or even era that you grew up in, the word never changes. It's always the same, yet it's always relevant. The Lord is outside of time, so he sees the end before the beginning. And so he knew today would be a day that you would see, and he left this word for you to glean from. So I encourage you to dive in to see what the Lord has to say to you. So we're going to start in verse 1. Again, in New King James is just the physical copy I have right here, but you can read it in any. We'll start with verse 1. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. A fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. When the wicked comes, contempt comes also, and with dishonor comes reproach. The words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. The words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. Verse 9, he who is slothful in his work is a brother to him who is a great destroyer. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and like a high wall in his own esteem. Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and a shame to him. The spirit of a man will sustain him in wickedness, The spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness, but who can bear a broken spirit? Verse 15, the heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. The first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. Casting lots causes contentions to cease and keeps the mighty apart. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a castle. Verse 20, a man's stomach shall be satisfied from the fruit of his mouth, from the produce of his lips he shall be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. The poor man uses entreaties, but the rich answers roughly. And then last verse, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So that ends reading chapter 18. I know sometimes it is difficult to see the theme, right? I'm always looking for a theme. And as I think I mentioned a while ago, the Bible wasn't written in chapter and verse the way that we see it now. And so in particular, Proverbs is written in short little snippets. These are kind of little snackable bites. It probably would be a great social media idea to just take one verse a day and put it out there for people to see, because they're just those bite-sized morsels for you to chew on, for you to meditate on. And there's a couple of those that stand out in this particular passage that are worth pulling out. And there are a couple that the Lord sort of wove together for me that I want to present for you today. So I want to look at verse 1, 2, and 24. We'll start with 1 and 24, excuse me. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. And then 24 says, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. And there is a friend who sticks closer to a brother. So when I read verse 1, I circled isolates himself. And so what you might find in a lot of our society, there's a lot of people that are loners that stick to themselves. You could be in a room full of people, but there's always one or two that sort of is on the fringe, that stays away. There may be some reasons for that we may not completely understand, but in certain cases, the Lord is talking about the person or the people who isolate themselves, those who choose to stay on the fringe, those who choose not to get involved, those who choose to stay away. There is a heart issue going in there with some people. Now, I'm not saying that this is every person, but there are some of us who separate ourselves from community, who separate ourselves from relationships. And what's the heart issue is that he raises against all wise judgment. Could it be that the reason that you do not want to invest, the reason that you don't want to come alongside, the reason you don't want to be a part is because you do not want to have any judgment. You do not want to have any correction. You don't want to hear the opinions of other people. You don't want to let people in to see what's happening in your life, to be able to provide wise counsel. Could that be the case? So it's interesting that he brings that up at the beginning of the chapter, but then in the end, there might be some of those that desire friendship. There's some that maybe just don't know how to connect to people. And the Lord is saying in verse 24, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. And so I have been in church for a long time, and I've seen various relationships. You probably hear people talk about church hurt and things that they've experienced in the past. This person didn't talk to me, or they didn't invite me in. I didn't feel welcome and things like that. But I would encourage you to take a look at this from a different perspective. The Lord says a man who has friends must himself first be friendly. And so if are you looking within yourself, are you someone who is friendly? Are you someone who goes to extend the hand? Are you someone who will voluntarily have a conversation? Do you try to put yourself in circumstances where those friendships could be established? So one, I think the correction here is don't isolate yourself. Don't be afraid of what other people have to say, because what they have to say might actually be exactly what you need to hear to help you grow in Him. But two, don't wait for people to come to you. You reach out, you extend the hand, you choose to be friendly, and allow the Lord to work on the hearts of those around you. And He will start to bring in those people that can be your folks, your folks. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in our society today, where you have likes and friends on social media and connections and followers and all that. And that really is not true relationship. It's not true friendship. And the Lord, I think, wants to get people back to a place where there is that human connection, there human conversations, that human insight, and not just what might feel superficial or might appear to be superficial that we see out here on social media and things like that. The real change, the real cultivation in people's lives comes from human connection. The Lord created us to be in community. He created us to work together for every joint to supply. What you have is something that I need. What I have is something that you need. And the enemy is really good at creating environments and scenarios where we believe we're isolated, or we choose to isolate ourselves before someone will isolate us out. And so I believe the Lord wanted to bring that up, because that may be something that one of you might be dealing with. But I thought that was pretty interesting. I want to go down to verse 6 through 8. We hear a lot in Proverbs about the mouth and what happens with your lips. There's quite a few passages, even in this chapter alone, that talks about the mouth. You have verse 4, 6 through 8, 13, 20, 21, and 23, all talk about the mouth, the fruit of the lips, and things that come from that. And so it is an important concept that the Lord continually brings up, because it's important. I think that He wouldn't put so much emphasis and say it so many times if it wasn't something that is lethal. The tongue right, is a powerful thing. Verse 21 says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so you can create death with it. You can create life with it. And so you've got to decide, which one do I want to be a part of producing? Do I want to produce life? And if you want to produce life in your own life and the lives of those around you, you have to be really cautious about the things that you say. And the words that you say come from your heart. And actually, verse 4, it says, the words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The wellspring of wisdom is a flowing brook. So if you've got a lot of wisdom deposited in your heart, you've got a deep well that the Lord wants to use to not only bless your life, but to bless those around you. It's interesting, and this is just a little side note. At my church, I have a couple of nicknames, and one lady calls me Sophia. Now, my name is Crystal, and I'm like, where'd you get Sophia from? And she said, because Sophia means wisdom. She looks at me as somebody that has wisdom, and so that's her nickname for me. And so could someone say that about you? Are you a wealth of wisdom? Are you a valuable person to have a conversation with? Are you someone that sparks ideas in people? Do you show people where to go and how to get there? Do you openly share about your own life, your own mistakes, your own successes that other people can glean from? That's part of that community. That's why it's so good to be around people who are wise, people who share openly about their lives, because it's something that you can get out of it. But also, when you begin to share, other people can glean from what you have to offer. But in 6 through 8, it talks about the fool's lips enter into contention and his mouth calls for blows. So when I first read that, I kind of chuckled to myself. The Lord gives me these little jokes sometimes. And in my mouth, I heard this old school saying that this fool's mouth wrote a check that his behind couldn't cash. Has anybody ever heard that before? I think it's pretty funny. But it's true. Sometimes our mouths get us in trouble. We say the wrong thing. We commit to things that we shouldn't commit to. We say we've done things when we haven't done them. We try to, for the sake of what people might think, over glorify things that maybe we shouldn't be doing. And so in this passage, it says the fool's mouth calls for blows, right? So this person has opened their mouth and it has caused issues to come towards them. Yesterday, we talked about 100 blows on a fool is less impactful than a rebuke of a wise man. And that was in 17 verse 10, right? Blows are something that comes to fools. Their mouths get them into trouble. Their mouths create scenarios where there's strife or contention or arguing or maybe even fist fights and things like that. So you will see that oftentimes on social media. You have one person that says something, you got 15 people battling back and forth, over a comment, and that is foolish. We need to be very careful with the things that we do and we say. And then it says in verse 8, the words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. That's talking about gossip. That's talking about lying. Those things sound good. They're enticing to the ear. But when you receive those things, when you're even the hearer of the words of a talebearer, it goes into you and it's planting seeds. Words are seeds, and we're either sowing good seed that will bear good fruit, or we are sowing bad seed that will bear bad fruit. And none of us want the bad fruit. So we have to be really protective of not only what we speak, but what we are willing to hear. Verse 15, I thought was interesting. The heart of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So just as we were talking about, the talebearer is spreading things that we don't want to hear. This is saying the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. They're not seeking to hear tales. The wise are not seeking to hear gossip. The wise are not seeking to hear lies, but they're looking for truth. And that word acquire in that verse means to get, to create, to buy, or to possess. It is an intentional acquisition. It's an intentional going after to get something. Even buying is something. So are you investing your actual resources to get knowledge? It's very intentional. And then that word seek, talking about seeking to hear, seeking means to request, exact, or to require. So again, another intentional, purposeful word. It's not by accident. It's an intentional act. When you go down to verse 13 and verse 17, I felt like those two were similar. It says, he who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame on him. And then 17 says, the first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. I think it's really important that we get the whole story. There's many times, and again, I talk about social media because that's just the age that we're in, and that's how we ingest so much information from day to day. Is what's happening, is what our Facebook feed says, or what our TikTok or Instagram feed says. And so that's how we're getting information, and we make judgments based on snippets of information. And this is a piece of wisdom for your own life and for the lives, if you're raising children or you're around other people, is to not hear the first version, but to hear the entire truth, to hear both sides of the story. Again, this makes me think back to when Solomon was working with those two mothers. And the first mother says, she rolled over her baby and now she's trying to take mine. Now, if that was the only version he heard, he may have believed it. But he continued to hear the remainder of the story. And then he, through the wisdom of the Lord, was able to come up with a test to decipher between what was truth and what was not truth. And he was able to identify which one was correct. And so it's the same thing here. We have to examine everything. We have to look a little bit deeper. We can't make judgments off of bits and pieces of information. We really need to use wisdom and action in those scenarios as well. The last one I will bring up is verse 16, and I think that's what I'll leave you all with today. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. So I've heard that passage many, many, many times over the years, and I'm sure you have as well. And a lot of times it's sort of talked about your gift or your talent, right? The thing that you do well is what opens the door for you and brings you before great men. Well, yes, I guess you could read it that way. But if you go back to the original language, that word gift actually is a present. And so it's talking about a man's gift. Like if I had a gift of this book and I wanted to give this book to you, this gift that I'm giving to you is what makes room for me and what brings me before great men. And so it really is a concept of generosity and giving. Are you a giver or are you a taker? People who are generous with their time, with their resources, with their finances, with their energy, with their homes, the Lord will use that because people who are on the receiving end, those people who are in need, people who are benefiting, there is a sense of gratitude that will come from that. And then there's a reciprocation that's there because you've given to them. They want to give to you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are always on the other side where you're looking to get, you're looking to receive, you're missing the opportunity to be able to share more of who you are with the people that the Lord wants to bring you in front of. And so I encourage you as you're reading through these passages, just like we were talking about earlier about, are you a person of wisdom that people seek to hear from? They seek to get guidance from. That's a generous spirit, somebody who's willing to share their wisdom, to share their life experiences. You could too be one that shares your wisdom and life experiences, your resources, your time with people who could use it. And the Lord opens up opportunities for you to be able to do that more and more, and will bring you before great men. So I'll leave you with that. The Lord is generous. The Lord, we cannot outgive God. He gave us first. He created this entire universe for his plans and purposes. He specifically designed you to be alive at this time, at this place, at this juncture, because of things that he wants to do with and through you. And he gave us the pathway to reconciliation through the blood of Jesus Christ. And John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him would not perish and have everlasting life. So God's gift to us was Jesus, and that gift takes takes him into big rooms, right? Puts him before men. And it does the same for us when we are giving of ourselves, when we're giving of what he has given to us first. There is blessing that comes on the other side of that. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I'd love to hear which passage jumped out to you. Maybe it was one that was different from what I shared. I'd love to hear it, love to stay connected. And also would love to know what resources you think would be beneficial for you as you begin to study Proverbs on your own. I'm looking to create some information that I can share and be able to give away and help you in your journey. So please put in the comments. Would you like a journal? Would you like flashcards? Would you like a devotional? What kinds of things would you be interested in so that I can share to help you along in your journey? God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 19. Have a great day.